al dente rigor mortis. I'm Review Clause.
Why?
These stands for evil.
And I'm confused because this isn't a Christmas pasta.
Yeah, but when this gets posted, it's going to be on the week of Christmas. So, can't. I just thought maybe we could. No?
No.
Should we just do it regular? Okay.
Start the episode over.
Oh, hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigor Mortis. I'm Review Cultist.
The E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And tonight we have, for the end of SCP-Sember, which is not a Christmas thing whatsoever.
No, why would it be?
Again, SCP-3132. Yeah, we grabbed this link from the SCP-3435 back in the summer. So that is what we have. This is the last of the linked SCPs from that roster.
Hooray! Except
yeah.
there's
Unfortunately,
2 links in this one, so
yeah, exactly. And what was it? Last one that we did where it was like, oh wow, this one has like nothing, and then like we have oh no, that was the one before that. Yeah, like this one, like last week where we had like just like these little mini air gap ones. Like this one is no different. Like the one link that goes to D class goes to SCP-3435, and there's a link at the very end of this entry that goes to another pretty short kind of like no links to it sort of creepypasta or SCP. So, but I've dithered enough as it is. Let's get on with the rundown and such. So, yeah, SCP-3132 is by Weryllium yet again. It's on the SCP.wiki.com.
wiki.
Yeah. And I'll just dive into my rundown. Okay, I'm full disclosure. Part of my rundown is just like clips from the from the entry itself because I wasn't going to rewrite stages, and that'll become clear in my rundown. So anyway,
okay.
SCP-3132 is a plaster replica of a human vertebrae. SCP-3132 exhibits several anomalous effects on humans in its vicinity, within 2.3 meters of the vertebrae, specifically. During and after this circumstance, following stages occur. Stage 1. Subject will begin to experience mild auditory hallucinations. Subject described the sounds as similar to those made when a joint is popped. The sounds last 10 to 40 minutes and immediately cease once the subject leaves the zone of influence, so the 2.3 meters away from the vertebrae. Stage 2, subject within range of SCP-3132 after Stage 1 ends, begins to experience major discomfort in their spinal joints. Most subjects will attempt to pop their backs. If successful, subject reports significant relief. Whether the subject pops their back or not, the pain will stop after 1 hour. And then we have Stage 3. If the subject successfully pops their back during Stage 2, only the subject's spinal joints are able to pop. Other joints will not pop no matter how they are pulled. Vertebrae will only pop in sequence, either up from the L4, L5 joint, if the subject turns their torso clockwise, or down from the C1 to C2 joint, if counterclockwise. The sounds heard when popping the joints increase in audible volume, and it's through the sound that the infection spreads. Anyone who hears the sound suddenly develops the Stage 3 symptoms permanently and becomes SCP-3132-1 instances. It was due to a breach during initial testing that the entire facility of Site-208 had to be quarantined, with all audio communications severed from the site and its current personnel kept inside. All other SCPs on site were transferred out of the facility, and personnel within were redesignated E-class and given compensational raises for their onto their pay, as well as supplied the necessary provisions. D-class remained D-class. They are still stuck in there until the situation gets resolved. And that's SCP-3132. So, yeah, I wasn't like, the stages were pretty like straightforward, so I just kind of cut and paste those, like most of it. So, yeah. I will move on to everyone tolerates the Grammar Inquisitions at this point, and I actually have some more in this one. I seem like SCP December is like I had nothing, and then I had one, and now I have two.
They're growing.
Oh god, it's an SCP vector.
Yeah.
It's an infection vector. Oh god. Yeah, so this is from the updated special containment procedures. All delivery of supplies is to be conducted by unmanned vehicles. Again, this is sort of a plural, singular thing. I really feel it should have been all delivery of supplies are to be conducted by unmanned vehicles. Because to me, that's just how it like, again, like it's technically
the sentence works.
Yeah, like to me, like that's like plural, like how plural would work for the sentence. Yes. And moving on to my next Grammar Inquisition, in the test log, so we have this Dr. Juarez. Dr. Juarez writes in his notebook, I think we'll do one last test, and then that'll be it for today. Stop using italics, especially for something that is being described in the middle of dialogue that is transcripted. Use brackets, please.
Wow. So he's actually saying that. No. Dr. Juarez writes in his notebook.
No, he's not, because it's italics. And I only realized that because I was like, wait, that's not dialogue. What's going on? Oh, I now notice it's italics. Fuck.
Wait, which part are you talking about as italics?
So it goes like Dr. Juarez, and then there's a period. And then Dr. Juarez writes in his notebook, period. That is italicized. Like Dr. Juarez writes in his notebook. And then it stops being italics as he starts talking again. I think we'll do one last test, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, that's annoying as hell.
Right?
Considering every other description is on its own, like it's not bracketed, it's tabbed down a line.
Or
like all the descriptions of shit happening.
Yeah, yes. Every other one is done like on the other side. Also, you'll notice every time they do it where like they separate it from the rest of the like dialogue and stuff like that, it is italicized as well. However, every time in the last SCP we did, we had a very similar situation happen where it was done in brackets. Like when when I think D11424 asked like what his odds were. And then it cut to like Dr. Aceros or something like that, or Acero, and it was like Dr. Acero, like in brackets, Dr. Acero, or momentary pause as Dr. Acero consults with the other research team, and then it cuts to in bracket Slim is like I remember that one like vividly, and it came up as soon as this like came up. I was like, so guys, please, for the love of fucking God. Stop using italics solely for like trying to differentiate something in dialogue because it just doesn't fucking work for like a portion of us readers.
I'll say this though. In this, it does.
Fuck you.
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because all the words are all the things that are being said are bolded with the person's name and then a colon, and then they say their words. And then up until that point that you brought up, the italic stuff was tabbed down, like or turned down, and then it's all italics, and then return down, and then back to bold. So, like, it is completely separated out of the sentence. It is not a italic thing that is in the middle of a bunch of non-italic words that are being said, except for that one.
Yeah, to clarify, I don't mind like them being separated, because again, that's fine. But when you're mixing it in with a
Yes.
sentence that is dialogue, you need to differentiate it better than just fucking italics. And this goes for any creepypasta. Don't do this.
Yes, it's just in this format, it works when it's separated.
Yeah.
This is like the only way that I am okay with italics.
Yeah.
You can very clearly tell, except when it's in the middle.
Except also, it wasn't until I caught this part, and then I looked down. It's like, oh yeah, the separated words are italics. Fuck.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Use brackets to separate a description in the middle of your dialogue, please. Mm-hmm. All right, my inquisition is over. I've tortured enough souls. Mikey, the Dance for Evil, you're up. Here's your porch and pitchfork. Wow.
Did you say porch and pitchfork?
Yeah.
I understand what a porch is, but what's a pitchfork?
It's a pitchfork with a torch with the T from the torch.
I'm googling pitchfork right now.
Oh God. I'm sorry, I'm slightly dyslexic. Apparently, that's what that means, right? Dyslexic, when you like mix up like the letters and stuff in words.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. But yeah, here's your torch and pitchfork. Wow, I actually had there's like a millisecond of pause for me to like remember, like try and
just talking about porches and pitchforks. Yeah. I understand.
Yeah. So yeah, here's the torch and pitchfork, Mikey. I'm out of here.
All right. Well, I'm gonna treat this like a hot potato and pass them to Gamer Yellow because I have none.
Okay.
Oh, well then, I have none as well. So
just throw them in the garbage.
Yeah.
All right. And on to actual thoughts. Yeah, we'll start with this here. All personnel stationed at this site are to be reclassified as E-Class personnel and allowed to continue their duties as normal, with all wages and benefits increased by 2 stages as compensation. Wait, so for the poor schmucks dealing with SCP-2078, the memetic, which you'll remember is the memetic voting virus, they get demoted to D-Class for being compromised and having to have like amnestics put on them like too much. But these motherfuckers get extra pay with their change to a new classification. Rip the poor bastards having to deal with that other SCP with any other SCP that ends up making them D-Class, because apparently E-Class is a thing, and you get a wage raise.
I think it's because you're not expendable at that point.
No, that's correct. Like it is a non-lethal contamination. They just like don't want it spreading. So basically, they're getting paid to work from home. They're getting paid a little bit extra to work from home too. Now, this one like kind of like because of, like the quarantine procedures and stuff, it kind of like another SCP that kind of stings a little bit now in our current timeline. Just a little bit, just because of, like the procedures and stuff like that. But I digress. And then we have my next comment here. The description of SCP-3132 and its stages. So when I was like reading through this, like the initial like description of what this is and like what it does and the stages and stuff, I was just like, so it's like a chiropractor's horror scenario. Like they can't pop the joints like any other joints except for like the spinal joints of like those 2 sections. No matter how hard they try, like that would be the worst for a chiropractor. But then we get into the test log a little bit more specifically, like down the way, like at the very end of the test log. Dr. Juarez pushes the button and his pen falls to the floor. The D-Class begins to twist as Dr. Juarez bends down to retrieve his pen. As he bends, his back pops unexpectedly within range of the microphone. At this point, a large shock wave emanates from between D19060 and D28888, partially destroying the walls of the testing chamber and most of the equipment. Closing statement. Dr. Juarez and the 2D class were injured and suffered partial hearing loss, but survived. While most of the recording devices were destroyed by the blast, analysis from the two that survived managed to make out a sound emanating from the epicenter. And it keeps going on and on and on about that. And then, like, apparently a bunch of people heard the sound, and so they got infected, and that's where, like, the containment breach happened and such. So, like, just reading through that, I was just like, okay, so this is actually a lot more. I guess this is a lot more. Like, the description of the SCP doesn't, to me, it didn't quite describe the threat level. Like, aside from, you know, the fact that, like, you can't pop your, like, any of your other joints in your body except for your part of your spine. The fact that this thing, like, it, I guess, like, it has a cumulative sound wave that it gives off. Like, the more people that hear it, so, like, this, it could be, like, exponential. So, like, that was two people, and then, like, a third one was introduced, and then it created this massive shock wave that destroyed part of a room with its concussive force. So, what would happen if the entire facility ended up having, like the entire facility ended up popping their back at the same time? Would they just, like, it would be like the same as, like, an atomic bomb going off, like, shockwave wise?
Yes.
Probably if
Like,
there's that many people working there.
Yeah, if that's indeed how many people, because, like, again, we don't know, because it's probably, like, the number of staff in Site 208 is redacted. But it's enough that, like, they had to quarantine off the whole center and then remove a bunch of SCPs from that they were testing at that site.
Because it wasn't just this one thing that they were testing there. There was a bunch of different things. There's different SCPs being tested there. I have to stop using things to describe things.
Yeah, well, what about stuff?
Well, stuff is different from things, so that's fine.
That is true. It's a weird, like, whipped cream style looking substance that is sentient. It's basically an SCP in itself.
It really is.
Not to be confused with the Thing, which is this horrible parasitic alien life form that mimics other biological life forms.
Or a Thing, which is a giant rock monster. Or a Thing, which is a disembodied hand.
Yep. Or It, which is a very hairy guy.
Yes. Or It, which is a movie that has a clown monster that lives in the sewers.
Yes. Which is actually a psychic vampire.
Yeah. Words are the worst.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, going back to the story. Yeah, so I guess, like, I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, like, for me, the description sort of downplayed the threat level of what this thing was. But the test log that we get, like, kind of helps illustrate the problem of this sentry and why they had to, like, fully, like, quarantine the site and keep people, like, there with, like, out any communication to the outside world, like, audibly anyway. Yeah, that was my big whole thing with that, is, like, I don't know. It just, I didn't like. I guess what my gripe here is that I didn't. I think they should have, like, maybe illustrated the threat level in the description as well, not just in the test log transcript. But
yeah, because in the description it only goes up to 80 decibels.
Yeah. But then, like, that last test they do, like, that was definitely more than 80 decibels, right? Like, a shockwave that can destroy part of a building. So, but yeah, I digress. I'll move on to the next one. So, this is from test 313229. Subjects D19060 and D28888. So D19060 is is a link to SCP-3435, which is where we grabbed the link for SCP-3132 by clicking on D19060 as a link in SCP-3435. That's clear as mud, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And you will again recall that SCP-3435 is the rad painting SCP. So we've now done the 2 D-class links from the rad painting SCP. And specifically, and in SCP-3435, we actually get a descriptor of what D19060 looks like. He's a 22-year-old African-American man. And he's the guy that basically, like, he looked at the painting, and unlike all the other people, was not affected, like, physically by the, like, he didn't, like, by doing, like, a criticism of it, by giving a criticism of the painting, he wasn't, like, physically ill, like, suffered no nausea, diarrhea, constipation, or anything like that from looking at the painting, which is what happens when our critics look at the painting. And his dream that he describes in that entry is the dragons. Like he's at his home, his childhood home. Then he goes out to the woods where the dragon and the dinosaur take him up on a rocket ship, and they just blast off into space toward a very bright white star. And then that's when he wakes up. My problem here is, like, unlike what we had last session, where SCP-11242, or sorry, 424. I'm very sorry. I got that wrong. 424. His in 3435, his link sort of, or his dreams, hopes and dreams, kind of connect with the next entry that he continues in, which is deep sea diving in the Arctic Ocean through a portal that goes to, like, the weird transdimensional market and stuff like that. This one, it just seems like he's just another. They just chose a random D class, and it just happened to be a D class that had been working on another in another test subject, in another test facility.
Yeah.
So it's like it has a little bit less. For me, it felt a little bit less of a punch to it, because, like, his dream had nothing to do with being quarantined in a facility, or having to pop his back because of a weird sound and stuff like that. So. Yeah, I was a little, like, let down by that part of this entry. It was like that it didn't have the same kind of continuity to me that the previous D class that we covered that was awesome did. However, I'm going to move over to this set of quotes. D19060. Another day, another test. What's on the menu today? Dr. Juarez, please stand by. In a few moments, we'll release you and move on to the next step. You'll be cracking your backs in various patterns into the microphones placed around the chamber. D28888. Awesome. Hey, later on, we should test with, like, 5 people and see if we can get a band started. D19060. Crazy Eights, that's the best idea you've had all week. Can we get that written down somewhere? Dr. Juarez, you guys know I'm not in charge of coming up with these tests. I'll be sure to mention it to my supervisor, though. D19060. Woo! What is it with SCPs, with the recent SCPs that we've done by Weryllium, and having fucking hilarious and awesome D-class characters?
He realizes they don't have to be freaking robots led to the slaughter.
Yeah,
People.
they're actually that's exactly it. Like, they're not just, like, red shirts, they're not just lambs to the slaughter like in every other SCP we've read. Weryllium actually treats these D-class characters, like, as people.
Yeah, and
so
through their exchange, you know that these 2 D-class, like, chat and hang out, because he gave him a freaking nickname as Crazy Eights, because he has 4 8s in his code.
Yeah, and then I think, like, I think later on they like high five.
Yeah, there's totally a high five.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just had to get that, like, despite like my despite the sort of disappointment I had with like the continuity between the two SCP entries and the D class that links them together. I do really enjoy. I want it to be known that I really do enjoy the conversation and like characterization in these SCPs.
Mhm.
So, but I will move on to my next thing here. Addendum 010417. Correspondence between Site 208 and Regional Director. We failed. SCP-3132 has effectively breached containment as of this morning. 90% of my personnel are now SCP-3132-1 instances. We've enacted lockdown procedures per standard protocol, but it's estimated we'll all be affected by tomorrow. Additionally, I've deactivated all phone lines and intercoms in this site and prepared most of the other SCP objects here for transfer. Anything else? Site 208 Director Villasana. And then this is from Regional Director Solis. I want you all to test the hell out of this one. Might as well, since you're stuck in there with it. Even the directors kind of have a little bit of like a nice little like kind of like a nice little like inner diatribe here.
It's a very informal response.
Yeah. That I'm not used to for SCPs.
Yeah.
Because it's usually so like kind of bureaucratic and like
dry.
dull and dry. But in this one, it's just like
according to section 38-7, you guys need to do this and that. Meanwhile, he's just like, oh shit, you're fucked. Well, have fun out there. Bye.
Have fun out there. We'll hopefully we can get this sorted out, but might as well keep testing, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's not obviously not that formal, but like yeah, it's basically like honestly this like reminds me of this also kind of seems more realistic to what like office emails sometimes are, because like that's kind of the kind of formal but informal responses that happen on like Teams and inter-office emails or like Skype call, like Skype messages and stuff like that we at least from my experience. So
I will say this: if this is meant to be an email, I highly doubt Regional Director Solis typed in hell and then highlighted it and then hit Control-I and then unclicked out of that and then continued typing.
No, it's definitely more likely that he just held down the shift button. Yeah, hit down yeah, he just hit down the shift button and put in hell. Didn't even put caps on and then like type it. No, he held that shift button down because that happens a lot in office spaces, I found. Yeah, no, I just again like between the D class conversation like and their personality and like even this like end addendum, I really enjoyed the way the personnel in this SCP Foundation section like actually communicate with one another. It actually feels more like they're people and not just robots doing tests. And I think that's a testament to Weryllium's writing, honestly. And then we move on to the footnotes section. So I think in one of the previous things I read, there's like actually like it mentions or it has like a little like one on one of the words, and then it does like a full on like footnote for it. Yeah, so footnotes, number 1, based upon the content of the comment, as well as SCP-3132's contagious nature, an investigation into the possibility of SCP-3132 and SCP-1937 being variations of the same phenomena are ongoing. So, I think I may have just like talked over it before, but yeah. So what they're referencing is there's a voice at the epicenter of the shockwave that through analysis they were able to pick up what like it actually says like, oh, that feels nice or something along those lines.
Oh, that's nice is what it
says. Oh, that's nice. Something along those lines. And so SCP-1937, which is by Azelflux on SCP.wiki, is a self-love shack in redacted Greece. If you spend more than 30 minutes in the building, you will obtain a permanent disembodied voice, which comforts and reassures you when certain trigger phrases are said. This persists even after leaving the shack. This has the effect of bolstering the individual's self-esteem, in fact. Because it's a nurturing and caring voice that's like so whenever you say I'm ugly, it'll say you're a liar. Or if you say I love you, it's I love you too. It's very reassuring, it bolsters your self-esteem issues and stuff like that. Not self. It doesn't bolster your self-esteem issues. It bolsters your self-esteem itself. And actually makes it
issues.
yeah. It basically pulls people away from depression and stuff like that. Is one of the effects it has on people as a result of being there for them. It's comforting, and it's like a little buddy, little disembodied buddy that's always around you.
It's also kind of horrifying. So it's a buddy horror.
Kind of, yeah. It is very much like a buddy horror. So, anyways, and the voice can be heard by other people when it manifests, because there's an interview in it where an SCP agent or a Foundation agent talks to some guy who has it, and he says, "Hang on," and he starts talking, starts doing some trigger words, and it starts reassuring him after the trigger words are said, and the agent's able to hear it. So,
where's it come from?
It just comes from nowhere. It's just it's just out of thin air. Basically, just being said. And the shack was the shack itself was being used by a group of interest called the Hope's Crusade as a service to help people dealing with depression and addiction. They were also using several other SCP artifacts found in the shack. However, those have all been redacted. And there's no links to those SCP entries. They're just they're completely just redacted.
Mm-hmm.
They were charging €40 an hour for the service, and have been, as of now, been apprehended, interrogated, and given amnestics before being released back into society. Monitored for 6 months to ensure they don't regroup, of course. The shack is now under guard by no less than 3 security personnel who ensure no one visits the shack. And to that, I kind of have to that's basically the rundown. It's a pretty short and sweet SCP entry. But after reading it, I was just dick move, SCP Foundation. I think you could have let this one stand out in the wild. Also, I can kind of see why why they think that this anomaly is possibly related to SCP-3132, especially given the epicenter shockwave voice. It does kind of sound very similar, or it does kind of have the same kind of not, I guess sounds similar is kind of weird because this is an audio, it's a written part, but it kind of have the same kind of intonation, I guess, in the writing of it. Again, that's nice. As they're popping their backs and stuff like that. So inflection, that's a word, yeah, not intonation.
Is intonation a thing?
I think so.
It's not important.
As I'm looking it up. Intonation, yeah, it has a word. The rise and fall of a voice in speaking.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
Yeah.
I learned a thing.
Yeah.
Indirectly because of this.
Yes. Because something I said.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think that this is one of those SCPs that the SCP Foundation could have maybe just been monitoring. But again, I guess they just don't want they have the sort of black and white, there's no gray area. And who knows what long-term effects having a disembodied reassuring voice will give you.
Yeah, plus if you're out in the wild and people are hearing these disembodied voices, even though they're not coming from those people, they're hearing the voices from the infected people, even though they're not infected. They will also think weird shit's going on.
Yeah, I will say one thing. Yeah, well, there is that. Yeah, they will kind of start to slowly break down conventional mundane reality because the supernatural will be kind of ousted. But the one difference I think between these two entries is that the voice that is heard, like the disembodied voice, is not an infection vector. It's the cabin itself that's the infection vector. So it's a slightly smaller, like there is an infection rate, but it's very slow because people actually have to be in the cabin for more than like 30 minutes before it latches on. But like hearing the voice when someone is feeling blue and it like tries to reassure them, like you don't suddenly develop your own voice. It's just this guy has a weird disembodied voice. It's like reassuring them.
Yeah.
Whereas in 3132, the mimetic virus is through the sound waves. But yeah, that's about all I've got for this one. For actual thoughts. So, Mikey, D stands for evil. Take it away.
So, my first actual thought here is a little bit potentially grammar related, but
then why wasn't it in Grammar Inquisition, Mikey?
It's kind of, but not. It's just they're using the wrong term, I believe.
Okay.
And you guys didn't catch it, so.
No. Continue.
The quote is, their comments are relayed to Dr. Juarez through a text-to-speech device. So it should be speech-to-text because the D-class don't have cell phones.
That's what I thought as well. Like, I thought that was backwards. I just didn't make a note of it.
I honestly the same thing. I just didn't make a note of it. I was like, I guess I may have. I just was like, oh, maybe I knew what they were meaning. The people in the cells are speaking, and it's coming up like a text thing. I just saw that. That was actually done in Venom 2 of all places, because they had a character who was in a soundproof like cell. Because she shrieks at super high, and has a sonic attack whenever she talks and stuff like that. So she had basically whenever she talked, there'd be a text or a speak to text system in the observation deck of the cell.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so that was my first thing there, because the text-to-speech doesn't work unless it was the doctor typing into the computer, but then that doesn't make sense because he wants to not hear the noise.
Yeah, it does seem like well, yeah, I guess we know now where the containment breach happened.
Yeah.
They wired it wrong. It was text to speech, or speech to text, not text to speech.
And then my next actual thought here is I really enjoyed the sort of sigh of relief. Oh, that's nice. That caused the huge shockwave.
Yeah. I'm kind of reminded of two things from that, from that kind of idea of a sigh just causing a massive shockwave. In Spirited Away, the Hayao Miyazaki animated film, there's this blast of torrent of water that just goes throughout the entire bathhouse as they pull out a bike from this river spirit's body, and as the water's just torrenting across the entire bathhouse, there's just this very long sigh from the river spirit. It's it's just a tidal wave just expands out from the epicenter of the spirit.
The softest words and the most destructive visuals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also reminded from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the doors that just sigh pleasantly whenever they're opened. Just the sound effect more than the actual effect of the sound in this entry.
Of course.
And I also like the personality of the D class. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Gamer.
Okay. I like the spoiler tab at the top for the original containment procedures. It kind of because it's showing like the evolution of their knowledge and what they've done, like what the Foundation has done to understand what's going on. While like they're still keeping the old information there of what they did before, but they're like, you don't do this anymore, but this is what we did before.
Yeah. Like they actually we can see the update to what they did. Or we can see what they were doing, and now we have like the but like first and foremost, here's the updated containment procedures.
Yes, and it does say right off the bat, updated. So
yeah,
yeah,
that was a nice little addition, I think.
Yep. Then I get on to reading the stage 1, 2, 3, and the basics of it is it gives you a slight discomfort, then makes you want to crack your back, and then your back cracks at very specific notes, and makes all of your other joints not crack anymore. So after I got finished reading that, I'm like, oh, it's one of those SCPs then. Okay.
Wait, what do you mean? What do you mean those SCPs?
It's one of those, like, just odd ones that isn't necessarily scary. It's just weird.
Yeah, it definitely fits the bill of one of those like just abnormal, like again weird. Like it's not necessarily a scary thing, but it's just like one of those like it's a mundane object that creates a weird effect on people.
But it's like a very mundane weird effect too.
Yeah,
like, it's almost passable to not even be a thing
until you read the test log.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I digress.
Like I'm also kind of with you on that. Like it's kind of weirdly, abnormally mundane compared to what we've been talking about recently for SCPs.
Mm-hmm. But in regards to the stages, at the start of stage 3, it says if the subject successfully pops their back joints during stage 2, they proceed to this stage. Blah 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 blah. So does that mean that if like they don't successfully pop their back and they just hold it out for an hour, they don't go to stage 3 and they're back to normal?
Yep.
That's what I got. Yeah. It's
if the case, if then everyone got infected, couldn't they just all just not break their back, not pop their back and just chill, and then they're all not infected anymore?
So the problem is with stage 3 is when the virus, when the mimetic sound virus thing is contagious, and then there's there's the source host or the source carrier, which is the vertebrae and stuff like that, and so it has the main effect. And then you enter stage 1, stage 2, and then if you don't pop your back in stage 2, you basically are you no longer have the you're no longer contagious. But then once you get into stage 3, that's when the virus becomes fully contagious, and again, that's when it can spread and continue to spread because people keep hearing the sounds of the joints popping, and they get infected, and then they get infected. It just keeps going. Stage 3 is the most infectious.
Yeah, and the people in stage 3, if they infect you, you go straight to stage 3. There is no stage 2 for you.
Yes,
Does
exactly.
it say that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any human who hears either of these sounds other than the person who generated them enters stage 3 permanently and is hereafter designated SCP-3132-1.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So because the sonic boom snap thing happened and they all heard it, all of them immediately went stage 3.
Yeah, and it actually continues on, like, furthermore, all sounds generated from the spinal joints of an SCP-3132-1 instance retain the ability to transform any listener of the sound to additional SCP-3132-1 instances. So yeah, it's basically, it's this weird, like, a weirdly specific, like, it's not even, there's, like, it's such a weird, I agree with you, like, Gamer, it's such a weird, like, SCP, but it's, like, mundane, because, like, the only really ramifications is that this could have the implication of, like, everyone on the planet suddenly only being able to pop their L4, L5 joint or their C1, C2 joint, depending on if they're going counterclockwise or clockwise. When they're trying to pop their thing, and they can't pop any of their other joints in their body, no matter how hard they try. So like arthritis is just going to start skyrocketing, and we can't stop it. We can't like fix it.
Or it's like a good thing because it means that everything is being held where it's supposed to be. You know?
I hear you, but like, what about the people who already have arthritis stuff and stuff like that? So, like, or they hear the sound when they were like in pain from like the arthritis or other like kind of joint problems and stuff like that, and the only way to relieve that is to pop it, but suddenly those areas can't be popped.
It is a very, very specific like thing that you're doing here to try to make this hazardous, and it's not working. I'm sorry.
Okay, fine, fair enough.
But yeah, either way, that's good that you clarified that because that makes a little bit more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Then I get into reading the what's it actually called? Testing log.
Yeah.
And then Crazy Eights, High Fives, 19060. And then, sorry, I'll just read this actually. Dr. Juarez. Dr. Juarez writes his book. God damn it, this isn't. It didn't copy over the formatting because that's supposed to be italics.
Right?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Anyways, Dr. Juarez, after writing in his notebook, says, I think we'll do one last test and that'll be it for the day. So as soon as I hear that, I'm like, oh no, what's going to happen? And then Crazy Eights, High Fives, 19060. I'm like, oh god, Crazy Eights is about to die. He's totally dead now. He's going to die here. And then he doesn't die. And I'm like, oh.
Although it almost like I almost felt like oh, this is the end of like the shockwave happens that destroys like most of the like the room and all the equipment and stuff like that. So like, well, they just got splattered on the walls from a shockwave.
Nah, they just have slight hearing damage. They're fine.
Slight hearing damage and probably injured from like getting like pushed. But they probably did get like hit against the walls by the concussive force, but it wasn't like enough to kill them.
Yeah. It's probably equivalent to like clapping his ears and then punching him in the face and pushing him against the wall.
Yeah, basically.
Mm-hmm. So the last test happens, and then the doctor drops his pencil and reaches down, picks it up, and it cracks his back and everything, right? And then the explosion happens. And so I know that the way it's written, it seems like the doctor's back crack is what caused the effect of the explosion. But in the lore, I don't know if they would assume that or not. They might just assume that the position and rotation of the D classes is what caused it. Like, unless they do the test again with the D classes in the exact same positions, doing the exact same thing, we can't straight up rule out the fact that his back crack had absolutely nothing to do with it.
Well, the thing is, like, this is being written after they've like analyzed after they've analyzed all of like the audio and what was they were able to salvage and so maybe they found that correlation in the aftermath of what happened.
Yeah, but what he's saying is correlation is not causation.
Okay, fair.
Like, just because his back cracked at the same time they cracked their backs doesn't mean that his back crack caused the explosion, because they could have caused the explosion on their own.
Fair. And then like the sound wave going off and like taking out their or like suddenly like breaking containment, like basically like because a bunch of people heard the commotion, that is what transferred it to other people.
Yeah, that's just purely a result of their position and their crackingness.
Yeah. Think of it like tuning forks, I guess, because they both crack their backs at the same time and they hit the right frequency.
Oh no. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the part that kind of confused me, because I know that the way it's written, it's made where it's like, okay, well, because it's written like this, we know that the doctor adding his non-infected back crack to the infected back cracks, these sentences I'm saying, made the explosion happen, but I don't know if it did or if they would have assumed.
Yeah, it is sort of unclear.
Testing, because at the end, he's saying he wants them to test the hell out of it. Where the hell are the tests?
Well,
I would
we
at
don't
least
know
like to
because
see one more
Yeah.
test of the exact same positioning to see if that caused it or not.
oh man, so this is how I want this
Same
to
D
end.
classes.
No, CMD no. I was like, yeah, they do that. We have that like final addendum, and then we have like an updated addendum or updated addendum like 01 007 17. And it's just like at 3 p.m. this afternoon, Site 208 was completely obliterated.
Yeah.
Just because like they did the one final test, but like the sound wave was even more like powerful and just like basically went off like with concussive force of a mini nuke or something.
Mhm. All because Site 208 director Dave wanted to do this one extra test.
Yep.
That
Fuck
bastard.
that guy. God damn it, Dave.
He's goddamn butthole.
But yeah, no, that I think also like with regards to the like I just kind of took it for granted that like the doctor might have been contaminated because he was hearing something like from the because like how is he hearing the so unless they need to either either the author wrote down like with the intention that the doctor's back popping was because he'd become contaminated somehow, but he didn't give a reason for how the what?
Can I explain this? Because it's explained in the story.
Okay, sure.
This is the way that the this whole situation is laid out. The 2D classes are in this soundproof room.
Yes.
There is a microphone there is a microphone outside the room that Dr. Juarez talks into. And they can hear his voice come through as his normal voice. The D class is inside. There's a microphone inside that picks up their words and turns their words into text for him to read.
Yeah.
So he cannot read any of these sounds. So the sounds do not reach him. But they can hear his back crack, hence why it potentially added to it.
Okay, I get it. So it's not that like he was infected. It was just like his back popping was a trigger, or was an additional trigger catalyst for their potentially for their back popping, or it had nothing to do with it.
Yes, that is the layout of the room as I understand it.
Yeah, based on the original special containment procedures.
Yes.
I actually pulled that up and just took a look at that. Okay.
But that is the end of my notes.
All right. So on to final thoughts. So for me, this isn't as fantastical or awesome as previous entries have been. Like, I'm sorry, like I think because like the bar was so high with the transdimensional marketplace. Sorry, the Arctic flesh hole SCP that we covered last time with the D class.
What was the name of it? That awesome name.
D11424 and the Arctic flesh hole.
Oh, is that what it was called? I thought it was something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, now I'm curious what this one is called. 3132. It's probably just gonna be like the vertebrae or something like that. So 3132. Huh. Okay. It's called SCP-3132 or Kraken the Backnack.
Kraken the Backnack?
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Interesting. A little. I'll be honest. I'm a little disappointed yet again. But yeah. So and this again, like it's. I think the bar for me was a little too high after the last episode we did with D11424. That said, I love the personality and conversation bits from the D class in this one, and even from like the directors at the end. Like it makes them more human. It makes them more like characters, which is interesting to have in an SCP entry where they are just treated like sheep to the slaughter.
Yep. Also, I looked up the last one, and it's D11424 in the Arctic meat hole of infinite wonders.
That's what it was. Yeah,
I knew it had a longer name.
Yeah, sorry.
Also, looking through this, I see that there is a Cthulhu here.
Yep.
I thought you would like to know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll get to it someday.
And there's one that's printing EKG, and it's like a GIF that's animated. Like the words are a GIF.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's neat.
Mm-hmm. You may want to get away from that because it's a spiraling hole of infinite wonder.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So yeah, like for me, it's a weird anomaly to be sure, and understandably like why they'd want to contain it because of like the shockwave stuff and all that. But I'll be honest, I found myself liking the associated entry from of SCP-1937 way more. Like, just in terms of like the weirdness factor of both entries, like I found myself I found it more compelling the self-love shack in Greece than
Side
the
story grabbed you better than the main story, basically.
yeah, it kind of did, and I'm sorry, Weryllium, but it's like it's not even like that. It's a bad story. Like it was done badly. It's just it was for me. Like I'm gonna partially recommend this story, but it was a little too subdued for my taste. Like it was almost a little too tame or mundane for what I'm used to for an SCP. Like it was weird, but it was like kind of on the low end of weird for me. But I did love the D-class dialogue and like characterization. So that's one of the reasons why I'm giving a partial recommendation is the D-class characters. Love the D. Wait. Moving on. Mikey, D stands for evil.
Yeah, continuing on, the main entry does seem rather mundane with only going up to 80 decibels. And it's not until we get the story and the different characters that this actually begins to sort of shine. And then I sort of really like that. Oh, that's nice. Just his final words, because he wasn't paying attention to the monitor or anything when he reached down for that pen.
Yeah. Wait, are you insinuating that the voice was actually the doctor in the
Yeah.
Son of a bitch! I didn't clue that in. Like, wait, gamer, did you think that?
No.
That does that. So basically, like that by that way of thinking, it's like it has nothing to do with 1937. Then.
No, nothing at all.
Son of a bitch! You've ruined the story for. Yeah, I'm not recommending this at all. Thanks, Mikey.
You did it.
Holy shit.
Because that is entirely possible.
Yeah, that's definitely what it could be. Because like, here's the popping sound, and then oh, that's nice, just from the epicenter of the so it just like, fuck.
The only way that could be hammered home more is if the words was, "I got the pen." Fucking pen.
Goddamn pen. Yeah, like we're still trying to figure out what that is. No, it was the doctor, guys. Wow, Mikey, you've further
Mundanified.
You've made already kind of mundane, weird SCP even more mundane. You've removed another sense of wonder from the mystery of an SCP.
Well
Holy
done.
shit. Wow. I don't know if I want to thank you for that.
You should.
No, I think I won't.
Okay, that's fair.
And then another thought that occurred to me while we were talking about this, because this is an SCP after all, is could this SCP work against the mother? Because a lot of her minions are just corpses stuck together. So
probably writhing and twisting and popping out their joints.
Yeah, and then causing explosions.
Oh my god! To reference the guy from the Americanized Godzilla movies. Let them fight. just I'm just picturing a bomber just going over the flesh guam and just dropping the vertebrae into the flesh guam.
It's just this little porcelain thing.
Yeah.
Is it porcelain?
Because also it's porcelain, so it won't be infested. It won't be like it won't actually get absorbed into the mother, thus giving the mother that ability. Because it's not an actual organic like vertebrae; it's a porcelain replica.
Or it'll break when it hits the ground and won't do anything. And then they don't have that anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, then that's fine. Then like problem solved. Plaster, yes. I mean, they were saying in those entries, those SCP entries with the mother and the flesh guam, that I just love saying that word, by the way, flesh guam. That they'll need to resort to non-conventional weapons.
That is non-conventional.
That is very much non-conventional, just like a bomber
Creatures
going
would have
over.
to be in very specific locations and orientations to cause an explosion, though. So, like, maybe 3 would explode, and then some of them might randomly explode as they're walking around, cracking
It'll create
their
a
back.
chain reaction that just goes over across the mother.
I don't know.
Maybe. Who knows? They'll never know until they try. That sounds like a test. Send in the D class. Wait. Or so they drop the SCP-3132 and several D class who are on a strapped to a platform, and they drop that like into vicinity of the mother, and right before they all before it crashes down into the flesh guam or into the ground or anything, kills the D class, they're doing the bone popping like things to try and infect as many as they can. And cause the explosion.
Yeah, go ahead, guys. Infect as many as you can. Make them as slightly uncomfortable for 1 hour as you can. And then make them harmonically break their backs, or pop their backs, rather, with no damage.
Yeah.
That'll annoy them.
I'm not saying it's a good plan. I'm just saying it's a plan.
It's a plan, yeah. It's equivalent to just, like, TPing the flesh guam and be like, take that!
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so what's your recommendation, Mikey?
So, well, overall, I enjoyed the test story, so I'm going to give this a recommendation.
Okay. And gamer.
So this was a strange one. It was kind of silly. And I know it's not a creepypasta, so saying it's not creepy doesn't really hold as much weight, but it's not creepy. It's odd and silly. There aren't even really any ill effects of becoming like a -1 to the SCP, apart from cracking your back at the exact moment a non-1 actually does it, maybe. I don't know, because it doesn't really explain it.
It seemed pretty clear to us, but okay. Then again, I'm also like a little confused by the end part, so it equals out.
There is no confirmation that the doctor's back cracking caused the explosion, or that the voice was actually his voice. It could have been anything.
God,
because they didn't do another test. Because why would they?
They did the test. They just didn't report. They haven't reported it yet.
They all died. That's
entry.
why.
Yeah. Again, we need that addendum. It's like the site was destroyed.
Yeah. There were no further tests being sent in, so we sent in a group to see what was going on, and the entire building was a crater.
Yeah.
That was weird.
Well, we'll just cordon off that crater, and just in case, and have a blockade over. Make sure like no one goes within like 15 miles of it, and call it a day. Good job, boys.
And yeah, this SCP being weird, it does mean it's unique, so we'll give it props for being unique, because it is that. And it read fine. It kept me wondering like what the escalation was going to be because of how mundane everything was. I was just hoping and expecting for something creepier or at least more like fatal. Because like it's about cracking your back. And I figured there would be an escalation where a dude cracks his back and he severs himself in twine.
Yeah,
No.
I was legitimately like when the shockwave happens. Before reading any further, I was like, well, they've been sliced in half.
Yeah.
Or like they've been splattered on the walls or something. And it says like they survive with severe like hearing loss. It's like, oh, boo.
Yeah.
I know for blood. Sorry.
I figured the inspiration for this was going to be basically as like a warning, don't crack your back a lot because that like hurts your spine and stuff. But it's just sort of like, hey, you can make music with your back. Like that's the story.
Yeah, it was such a weird. Yeah. Well, and also actually to kind of clarify, like actually popping your back and cracking your back is actually really good for you sometimes, depending on if you have developed like things like arthritis and stuff. Like that's why chiropractors pop your back, like pop your back and stuff.
Yes, but they do it in a specific way that doesn't hurt you.
Yeah.
If you go around like just constantly cracking your back and your knuckles and stuff, you're going
to develop arthritis.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually. I don't know if that's actually how you develop arthritis, but I know that's like was like the childhood warning I was given for cracking my knuckles and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, I thought that this was going to be basically a result of that sort of warning that we were all told, but not really.
No, it's just.
And I like that it shows and keeps the documentation about the Foundation's change in policy and all that. And like obviously the D class are great and nickname themselves and it's awesome, but all that being said, I still can't recommend it just because it's really weird and it doesn't do anything,
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like honestly, for me, my saving grace, the saving grace was the side entry because I found that one much more compelling.
Yeah.
And the D class conversation. Like I love the characterization of the D class. So
yes,
like yeah, it's just sort of it's too simple, or it's too not too simple. It's too safe. Is this? Oh, it is. It's even object class safe. So much like the object class of this entry, this story plays it too safe, I think.
Yeah, because like at the end they're like freaking out and they're like, "Oh no, we're all infected. We have to quarantine." Meanwhile, it's really not a problem.
I mean, they probably should stay. Yeah, I mean, like it's a problem in that they should be quarantined, obviously, because of like they don't want this getting out. But at the same time, like it's not life threatening or it's not like mind rending or anything like that. It's just this: you now permanently can only pop your back in these two ways.
It's like if there was an SCP that was a comb, and if you comb your hair with it, your hair turns bright pink. And then if anyone gets any dandruff from your hair on themselves, their hair also turns pink. That's the level of creepiness and weirdness of an SCP that this is. Like, there's no problem aside from the fact that it could spread and cause other people slight discomfort for an hour.
I think it's more than like, okay. I agree with you, but I also think you're missing part of the danger element of like it getting out, because again, like back problems are a severe issue. And this thing, like if you can't pop your back, if you only pop your back in certain ways, like that's going to be trouble for a lot of people if this goes viral or goes like epidemic.
Okay,
but again, I do agree.
Like an SCP that is like it's so specific.
Yeah,
it targets such a small, specific amount of people. It's like if there was an SCP that only targeted people that were allergic to like latex or some other specific thing.
Yes,
and to them, sure, it's something that can cause them a problem, but to the mass populace, it's not a problem.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah,
it's some normal mundane-ish effect that's caused by a weird artifact.
Fair. Yeah, again, I'm not fighting you on it because again, I do also agree. Like your comb example is kind of valid as well. It's just it's not as it's not a world ending threat that we've kind of come to expect from most SCPs. If it gets out,
like, and I'm not
but
saying
it's understandable.
SCPs, and I'm not saying SCPs have to be world ending. It's just so chill.
Yeah,
That
I
it's-
think that's the thing. Is like it's too chill.
Yeah. At least for my palate.
Also, I'm a little shocked that like the people inside are getting. I'm also a little like shocked and a little like appalled that like, oh, these guys get raises. But somebody who
they're still working.
no, but I mean like the people who get amnesticized like beyond repair, become D class. They don't get like any extra pay or anything. They just become like test subjects. So I was like, that's wow. That's a
Because they can't use these guys as D class because they'll be infecting other people.
That's true, yeah. But I mean, they should also
So-
be getting like. I guess I'm just thinking they should also be getting a pay raise, or at least their family should be getting some compensation. But we don't. Again, maybe that just like wasn't brought up in that one because it wasn't important to the plot or
Yeah.
the entry. But yeah. So I guess ultimately though, you don't recommend this one.
No.
So yeah, I really just 1.5 recommendations. Like again, I partially recommend it. Mikey recommends it, and Gamer will not recommend it. But that was this week's episode. If you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below where this gets posted, whether it be on Podbean, Facebook, YouTube, or Tumblr. We're all on Twitter, so you can talk to us there. Mikey's at the E stands for evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W because his name is very long. And I'm at Review Cultist. You can also send us emails at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTIS@gmail.com. Where you can also leave us other creepypastas, SCPs, cryptids, spooky things.
If you creep it, we'll peep it.
Yeah.
Still not sure if I like it or not, but I'm just saying it because I have to.
I mean, you don't have to. I enjoy it.
It's fine. It's fine.
And if you'd like to help support our show, you can go to Patreon, look up Al Dente Rigor Mortis, and select the backer tier you'd like to support us at. We have $2 and $5 tier with special episodes, early access, extra content. To our patrons that are helping support the show, thank you guys immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay, and as always, we very much appreciate that. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you immensely, because without your listenership, it'd be like speaking into the void. And without your authorship, without your stories or SCP entries, even ones that are a little bit more mundane than we'd like, thank you, because if you didn't put them out there to share with the wider internet world, we wouldn't have much of a show because we'd have nothing to talk about. So thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
Mikey, the E stands for evil.
And I'm the Gamer in Yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigor Mortis. Sleep well.